All right, welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Bernd. Evan, how we doing?
We're doing well. Getting into summer, Bucks are making moves, so I'm excited to be back. Let's do it.
Yeah, you got that right. In case you guys missed it, going into last Thursday's NBA draft, the Bucks had one draft pick. It was the last overall pick, pick number 58. Now, in case you missed it, in case that number sounds kind of weird to you, well, that's because it is. There were two teams that were caught tampering. I believe it was if I have it correctly, it was the Bulls and was it the Heat, I want to say?
I do not remember. I just know they were yanked of their picks.
Yeah, so it was those two teams. They were caught tampering, so their second round picks were forfeited. So the Bucks did end up taking Chris Livingston out of Kentucky, and we'll get into him in a little bit. The Bucks then, with the 36th overall pick, in a trade with the Orlando Magic, took Andre Jackson Jr. out of UConn. So, Evan, I guess my first question to you is, what was your reaction to the pick?
So, obviously, having the 36th pick, that's still early second round where you can still get a pretty decent player there. Not big college basketball, but I do try to follow as much as I can. I knew the name, obviously, from UConn, so he just won the NCAA championship. Kind of looking more into him. I like that him and then eventually Livingston, they're both super young. But I think the thing that I like most about him is his, the quote-unquote, freak athleticism. I don't know. A lot of his clips, I just see him being able to take charge, easy fast breaks. He's an explosive type player that I see, and I really think that Adrian Griffin will use him correctly, especially bench wise with him, Livingston, hopefully Beauchamp as well. But I like him. He's obviously not a shooter. Both the guys that we got aren't like these knockdown shooters. They both average about 5 or 6 points. But I think what's slept on from Andre Jackson is that in 2021 and 22, I was looking at his defensive skills and his steals. I think were one of the big things to point out, averaging about a steal a game. And then in his ad came up. In 2021 and 22, he had, where did it go? 38 steals, and then this past season he had 39 steals. So I think that's pretty good defensively, which is probably what they're going to be using him the most for, again, based off of shooting.
Yeah, so the first thing that kind of stuck out to me is, the new Bucks head coach, Adrian Griffin, helped make this pick. Okay? If everybody remembers, okay, if anybody had been really living under a rock, obviously he was the associate head coach for Nick Nurse and the Raptors. What were the Raptors really known for? Defense. And having guys who are long, who can defend, especially at an elite level. And, Jackson Jr. comes from that championship culture. UConn just won the championship on a really, really good team. And I've been saying all along, I think this is what the Bucks were missing. Okay, if you remember when the Bucks won the championship, I kept saying they basically need a reincarnation of PJ Tucker, a guy who's not known for offense. Okay, not that's not his strong suit, but we needed someone who can defend and rebound at a high level. Okay, now he does. Now obviously PJ Tucker doesn't have the bounce that Andre Jackson Jr. does. But I just think that over the past couple of years in the Mike Budenholzer era, I just think Milwaukee became way too one-dimensional offensively. They were just, not that they had about 3 or 4 good defenders, and the rest of the roster, it felt like it was just kind of iffy. There wasn't, there really wasn't anybody that we could be like, ooh, 1 through 5, these are all good defenders. You could attack Grayson Allen. You could attack Pat Connaughton. It's not that those guys didn't try defensively. It's just, when you're facing up against wings when you go like tall wings, that's where the matchup nightmares kind of happen. Okay. Are you going to sit here and tell me that Andre Jackson Jr. wouldn't have had an impact against Jimmy Butler in the Miami series? He would have. And you knew that despite how good of a defender Drew Holiday was, it felt like it was just, all right, Drew, you just guard Jimmy Butler one-on-one. Okay, even though you might be a little small, to stop him one-on-one, we're gonna let you take this. And I think that's where Milwaukee went wrong. I don't think there was enough help defense, and I think that just even throwing in Chris Livingston into the mix, get two guys who are not really known for scoring, because I just looked at stats today about a little over 6 points a game, and I don't know that much about Chris Livingston. I'm assuming if he doesn't score the ball well, that he can defend at a high level. So, I think Jackson Jr., I think he might be a prime candidate to see minutes next year. Even if he plays like a defensive stopper type role. But overall, the selection of Jackson Jr. I really liked.
Yeah, I do too. I was looking up, I like looking at like their draft comparison of like who's the player, and this was before the draft started, but they had Andre Jackson being compared to Josh Green, which I feel like isn't too bad of one, but I feel like he's just one of those guys who is just explosive, like I said earlier. And I feel like they could use him kind of like how you were going, like with a Javon Carter type role. So again, someone who's there for defense and defense only, and will probably play a lot if they have like those garbage games where everyone's like on a rest or someone's hurt. So I see him being used, but not like he's going to be getting 15 to 20 points a game, which he could eventually work his way up to. But I think he'll be used more defensively than offensively. Same with Livingston, just because of their defensive skills rather than their known shooting. But I'm excited. I think he looks good. Again, he's coming off of the win for March Madness, so I hope Griffin uses him well, and I think he will. I think he'll find something to help these guys out, especially with Marjan as well for his offseason work. But I got good hope for them to use them.
Yeah, and especially even going as a guy you just mentioned, Marjan. He worked out with Giannis in Greece. I think Giannis took one teammate. He took Marjan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just kind of goes to show that, Marjan, I think this is a big offseason for him because, not seeing, I guess, the predictable amount of games that we could have seen that, all right, he's playing early. Like, Budenholzer might like him, but then all of a sudden
he's gone for
he's parked on the
games.
bench once everybody kind of came back, and once, he was pretty. He was up and down last year, which again, that's kind of what you expect with a rookie. That there's going to be good moments, bad moments, good shooting games, bad shooting games. I think this is a huge offseason for him, and I think working with Giannis in Greece this summer can only help him because because for him he's just got to develop. Okay, you just got to develop him. Got to throw him into some games. I think there was a lot of Bucks fans who were a little confused why he didn't see more action last year because, I don't know. I guess you got to kind of ride the wave if young players like showing you something. And I would have liked to see him more in the Miami series. I mean, at least just give it a change of pace.
Just throw him in and see what happens. If he's not doing anything, take him out. It's not too tricky to do, but I don't know. I think out of all obviously he's not a rookie, but with still like rookie type attributes, I really hope they find some way to use him. I think getting more youth on the team will help out a lot with speed and athleticism than some of our older guys. Obviously, our older guys are still really good, but we're getting too old and too slow. So especially Andre Jackson, he's fast. So I'm hoping something is worked around him.
Yeah, and I kind of brought this up in a blog I recently wrote for Behind the Buck Pass. Is that, can you see Milwaukee doing what Golden State tried to do? It didn't exactly work out how they wanted it to. But, okay, with Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez, Middleton, and Giannis getting a little older, are they trying to build through the draft? Okay, like just stockpile a bunch of young talent. So when those guys, I guess, retire, get older, whatever you want to call it, is that all right? Well, these are the other guys that we have kind of coming up through the system.
Yeah, and it's because they got Patrick Baldwin, who I know they just traded to the Wizards in that Chris Paul trade, but they were getting, unironically, a lot of guys from Milwaukee because I pay attention to that weird stuff, and they kept getting Milwaukee guys. But it's you have these insane you got Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond. You got a lot of the vets, and teaching and growing that young core. It's I guess you could say like the passing of the torch, but they do it well because it's worked for quite some time. Obviously, some guys do better than others, but I think it's something that could be potentially used with Giannis, Chris, Drew, Brook, their whole starting lineup practically. To then these new guys, I hope they can get the Bucks maybe like one or two more younger guys, like enough to like realistically like make a rotation, not a rotation, but just like a lineup in general. To use, because I know I'm not going to know the name because I don't know college, but that guy from Gonzaga that they just signed, the mustache dude.
Oh, Drew Timmy.
Yep, yeah, they got him. I would assume he'll be on the Herd or like a two-way, but I don't really see him like being on the Bucks roster like too long, or if not any. But some of those guys just to kind of work around and see what happens. And again, we still got AJ Green, so he'll be used again, I hope, well this year too, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and I think Drew Timmy, like kind of looking at his game, he doesn't shoot from the outside. He was a dominant low post presence, which that doesn't work in the NBA anymore. Okay. I think it only really works because I've seen players like still stick around the league who don't have an outside shot, who are centers. But if you could defend at a high level, there's a spot for you.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Timmy, again, dominant low post presence at Gonzaga, stayed about 5 years. But I think you're right about that. I don't think he's going to be on the Bucks for very long because I don't think he's a very good defender. And, it's just like, okay, without like, because the shots he got at Gonzaga, that was like so easy, and the guys are a lot smaller. He's not going to get those same shots in the NBA.
No.
And I think Milwaukee would prefer it if they had a guy behind Brook Lopez who had a bit of an outside shot. I think the other problem they might run into is that, like Bobby Portis, like if he's our backup center, that would concern me a little bit.
Yes.
Positionally wise, that would concern me. Myers Leonard, that Myers Leonard didn't really do anything for Milwaukee last year.
No.
But, Bobby Portis, and there's been a lot of talk about, Milwaukee really wants to take the next step, maybe trade Bobby Portis. Do you agree with that line of thinking?
I've heard that, I've read it, and I've discussed it with like my dad and my brother. It's one of those things where it's, in the long run, is it going to, like, what's going to help down the road of, you got a championship out of Bobby, you've used him, he's done really well. Are you going to trade him while he still has some value, or are you going to ride it out and see what happens? So I feel like maybe one more year and see what happens. They win it all this year, kind of see what he did or how he contributed. Otherwise, potentially trading him at the deadline this upcoming season. Again, it's tough because everyone likes Bobby. So it's one of those things where like you have like a a situation like with the Brewers, like, do you get rid of Willie Adames? He's like the heart and soul. Everyone loves Willie. Everyone loves Bobby, and it's one of those iffy ones where what changes momentum wise if you get rid of a guy like him? I'm still iffy on it. I can't give a yes or no. I'm iffy.
Yeah, because my whole thing is like if their production doesn't, I think fans do tend to fall in love with the player because of how like charismatic and like how about the team they are. Like you mentioned, like Adames, Portis. Like I get it because he works extremely hard. He like kind of embodies the city of Milwaukee. But at the same time, if it's like if his production doesn't match and he's like almost unplayable in the postseason, then I'm sorry. Then you have to make a move. You have to make a very tough business decision. And over the past 2 seasons, there's no argument that Bobby Portis hasn't really been playable in the postseason. Like I'm sure he's had good moments. I think everybody's had good moments, but in totality, like when he's been on the Bucks, I just don't think he's been as playable as he is in the regular season.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, in the finals, he had a pretty decent run, like most did. But yeah, it's iffy because he's so good in the regular season when it came to double doubles with points and rebounds. But then again, you throw him into that different. The playoffs is obviously a different type of culture and atmosphere, so it's concerning. I feel like they'll keep him, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. I think that's kind of the mindset I'm at, where it would suck to lose him, but again, I can see it happening. Of all the players, I think he would be the one.
Because look, here's the thing: John Horst is probably going to lose some people. He already ran it back once.
You can't keep them all.
It didn't work. Okay, he literally kept like the like head assistant water boy, like that. Like that's what it felt like last year. He was going to keep every single person associated with the Bucks, even if they didn't play. Like that was the thing. It's like, all right, they signed like last year. They re-signed Serge Ibaka and they re-signed Jordan Nora. All right, well those guys are going to be there like long term, and we got our answer. He re-signed George Hill. He literally signed every single player for the Bucks roster last year. That was a mistake. All right, sure, we got Joe Ingles on a deal that I don't even think exists anymore. Like they're not going to let. You can't get players like that, like Joe Ingles, because there was like a new CBA that basically makes it harder to get players on like what's it called, like a mid-level exception, like a mid-level deal. Like it's going to make
it like the veteran minimum in a way.
It's going to make it a lot harder to do that due to the new CBA. So, and again, he's probably going to lose some people. Probably some tough trades need to be made. I just, like I said, you can't keep everybody. You ran it back once, you can't do it again.
Yep.
I also don't see how Milwaukee can really add to this roster. They don't have like a lot of salary cap space. I'm pretty sure they're into the red. So there's nothing that they could do. There's no free agent that's out there that's like, ooh.
Like let's go get him. You're gonna have to make a trade.
I mean, look, there's that Derrick Rose rumor that's
I saw that again today.
Been hot for 7 years now.
It gets I'm seeing a lot of the trades going on, and some of these trades are like people are getting for no one. Like I saw John Collins just got traded to the Jazz for like a second round, and Rudy Gay. It's like one of those where it's like, can the Bucks fleece some trade like that for a team who's potentially blowing up? I feel like Trae Young is going to get traded now, which will kind of make things interesting. But I don't know. I feel like there's got to be someone on some team that they could make an easy trade for, but otherwise it's trade or the same team because you don't have the money, and you're going to need the money for Giannis in the future. And with Chris Middleton too, who obviously declined and people are assuming he's leaving. He's probably just going to re-sign for a shorter or smaller contract. I'm seeing like 4 years, $120 million. Again, I am hesitant, but Chris Middleton has done us wonders. So I don't know. I never know with Chris Middleton. Again, he's either prime Michael Jordan or just you're a below average NBA player.
The money aspect of it would make me nervous because all these
Yes.
Bucks fans are excited and they're like, "Oh my God, Chris Middleton's going to re-sign on a shorter deal." It's like, did you not watch him this year? Okay, he was hurt practically the whole year. I'm not saying I don't want Chris Middleton back, but I'm not also willing to overpay for a guy who I'm not really sure about his knees. I'm not. I hope it's not a Brandon Roy situation where it's like degenerative and it's always going to give him problems. I don't want that to happen. I think Chris Middleton is a good player, and when he's right, is a top 15 player in the league. But at the same time, I'm also not willing to be like, oh yeah, let's give out like 5 years and like 130 mil, because trust me, that has bitten the Bucks in the butt before. I always go back to the John Salmons deal. When they gave John Salmons a 5-year contract after one trade after he played well for 3 months. How'd that work out? He was traded in less than a year later. So he was traded a year into the contract. So, as much as I would like Chris Middleton to be back, by the same token, I'm also not willing to be like, yeah, let's give half our salary to make sure Chris Middleton stays in Milwaukee. I'm just not willing to go that far quite yet.
Yeah, and it's the over 100 million that I think is the deal breaker, where it's 4 years, 120 million. Again, it's the projected, so that's over 20 million a year. I'm still hesitant on it, but I feel like I'm hoping they can develop Chris Livingston just because of his, again, small forward, hoping that he can turn into something, not Chris Middleton, but get him in like a mid post. I was reading he's 6'6", but he's got a 6'11" wingspan. So I'm hoping they can utilize that into something and use these new guys in hopes of something happening with Chris, or if Chris gets hurt, blah, 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 kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. But again, the guys that they got aren't shooters. So that's going to be their primary target. I hope they can trade for someone who's a shooter or a better shooter. Dante, do we bring him back? Because I think the Warriors let him go. I don't know.
I've been thinking that. I've been hypothesizing, is there a way to bring Dante DiVincenzo back? Because look, he had a bad ending in Milwaukee. He just did. He was starting in the middle of our title run. He got hurt in game 1. I mean, and they missed the rest of the year. And he had to celebrate with the team with crutches.
Yep.
I feel really bad that happened to him, because this is a guy who works hard. He's a good deep ball shooter. And then, then they traded him to Sacramento. Like, that's why I feel bad.
Warriors. It's
bring us Serge Ibaka, who didn't play. Like, that's what's frustrating about it, is they didn't have to give up Dante DiVincenzo. Like, he would have found his rhythm, he would have found his stroke, but they weren't also sure about Brook Lopez's back situation from a couple years ago. So then all of a sudden we get Serge Ibaka, he plays, and then Brook Lopez's back is healthy, and now it's like, well, now we don't have another. Now we just lost a playmaker.
Yeah, Dante had like an insane year on the Warriors, obviously because he's under Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. But I don't know. That's been like in the back of my head, and I've seen people like talking about potentially bringing him back. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I thought he was, again, decent. Just had that, like, again, rough ending in the finals or the playoffs. But I feel like Grayson is going to be gone, and I feel like there's going to be a trade around him. I've seen some rumors. I can't guarantee it, but some guard on the Bucks I think will not be here to start the season. I don't know. We'll see. I'm assuming Grayson, because I feel like they're going to keep Pat, because he's more of like a weirdly small forward, power forward player for his height. But I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't be a bad thing to try to bring him back, or if you'd want to come back, kind of reach out to him, because I'd be down for it. Again, after having a year with Steph Curry, I couldn't be opposed to how he's developed there, and then just bring that shooting here.
Yeah, great. Yeah, if anybody's going to be traded, Grayson's probably going to be number 1, 2, and 3 on that list. If any trade's going to happen, it's probably going to be Grayson. just because of the fact that he's the most expendable. And you could find players like him just rolling
Anyway.
around in the NBA.
Yep.
I don't know if it would be Grayson and Pat, or if it would just be Grayson. I mean, I don't know if Milwaukee would look at those two players and be like, well, I mean, Grayson did have a better year last year than Pat did. Like, Pat had a rough year, coming back from injury. And I don't know if Milwaukee sees him and be like, who has a higher ceiling? Could Grayson Allen get better? Or could Pat Connaughton get better? Like, I think that's the question Milwaukee has to ask themselves. I also don't think you can rely on those two in the playoffs. I think that would be the most concerning. So, I think you are right that, would they go after another shooter, which I think they might need to. Are they also, or is Adrian Griffin going to be like, let's kind of do away with the 3-ball. Let's get a couple of shooters and let's, work in the paint a little more. Because, if you remember the Raptors, they really only had like 2 pure shooters on their roster.
I wouldn't be opposed to that either. Again, I hate the 3 shooting every time we talk about it. I just think it's dumb. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I know Livingston that they just got is a good pick and roll guy that I've been reading about. So maybe utilize that. I know Brook Lopez, they do that with him. If Brook Lopez stays, I always see the Rockets are trying to get him. If Brook leaves to go to the Rockets, that would be the dumbest thing in the entire world. But I don't see him leaving, so I'm just going to assume that he'll be here. But I feel like it wouldn't be a bad thing to pack the paint more and just like, if need be, the 3 is open. I feel like it shouldn't be shoot the 3 and if how do I want to say that? If the goal is wide open, go for it, but let's always just shoot a 3. It should always be flipped. Go as close as you can and then shoot out. So I feel like they could do that, but it would make things, me personally, I think it would be a lot easier, especially with the guys that we have who can attack the paint. Everyone almost can attack the paint on the Bucks.
Yeah, like we're not saying like don't shoot the 3 because I think, especially if you get to the playoffs, you got to be able to shoot the 3 because, in a playoff series against Giannis, like they're just going to clog the paint against him. So, you got to kind of rely on like, all right, who are your true shooters? Like who's going to help them? Although I will say this, like when they made their finals run, I've said this before and I'll say it again, they were 32% from 3-point range in the finals. So we're not saying they have to be 39%. Maybe shoot threes a little bit, hit the mid-range a little bit, and just kind of let Giannis dominate.
Yeah, or just like decrease the amount of threes that you take. Like 32 to 35% is a lot different when you don't shoot 45 a game. Where it's like so many teams they play against shoot like 20 to 25 and they hit maybe like 13 of them. So it's like it's a whole different thing based off of the numbers and how many you're shooting. So I would say just cut the 3-point shooters, or not the shooters, the amount that you take, just because you don't need to shoot 40 plus threes every game, especially when you're not making any of them and you do it again and again and again.
Yeah, and we saw that strategy work for the Celtics. They shot like I think 12 or 20% from 3. In the game 7 against Miami. So, threes are the new landscape in the NBA. Doesn't mean it's the right way to play basketball, to play a more advanced style basketball in the NBA.
Yeah, and especially when I remember when there were rumors of like the 4-point line, and it's like cool to like shoot like far 3-pointers and like 3-pointers in general, but when you have a team who relies on that so strictly and it doesn't work for multiple games in a row that you don't know what else to do, then it doesn't really help your team in general because you're bound to lose then or not succeed in the long run just because of, well, if our main idea doesn't work, now what do we do? And I just felt like the Bucks were always at the, okay, now what? And they just didn't know how to, they dug themselves too deep and they didn't know how to get out of it. So they just kind of guessed. which got frustrating, especially in the playoffs last 2 years.
Yeah, because I don't know. Sometimes I knew they ran plays, but I just didn't know what some of those plays were. Where it's just like, all right, Giannis here, just be amazing. Or,
Do
Brooke,
you?
do you, man? Hey, Brooke, Drew, Chris, you're getting in the act.
Keep it
Like,
up.
you guys want to pick up the slack too. Milwaukee, as you saw in the Denver series against Miami, it takes a village to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
It just does. There's so many moving parts. There's so many, everybody has to step up. Okay? Every single person's minutes is crucial. Milwaukee, that's what it feels like. It feels like there's past couple of postseasons, it feels like there's 3 or 4 guys doing the heavy lifting, and everybody else hasn't really stepped up their game. So I think that's why everybody's like, okay, John Horst needs to make a move. He's got to make a move. See who else is out there. See who else can step up in the postseason when it matters.
I feel like he'll make the right trade or decision in the short future. I feel like within the next couple of weeks, there's just going to be a lot of teams just kind of not like necessarily blowing their team up, but just trading some of their key guys around. And I feel like whenever someone big goes around that someone's trying to trade for them, I would see as a rival for the Bucks, for the season. If some of the top contenders are trying to get them, maybe also just try to go, because if they want them, maybe then the Bucks could try to steal it from them. So I feel like there's a way to utilize trades. You just have to know who you're going to get and what you're going to use them for. Don't just trade to trade. And I hate when they do that, where go for a guy that will have a long run impact, or most importantly, a playoffs impact. Don't get the guy who is going to do well in the regular season, but then disappear in the playoffs. Get a guy who is going to succeed in the playoffs, where I feel like it might not be the guy that everyone would want, but it's going to be the guy who's going to have the biggest impact when it comes to a playoff run. And I feel like a lot of teams just get the guys who will win them 55 games in the regular season, then our first or second round exits.
Well, I do have a couple of names off the top of my head. One of them is Draymond. I'm going to be honest, Midwest guy.
Yep.
Okay, he's probably going to re-sign Golden State, but hypothetically, if Draymond if he can cut how much he's asking for down, because he says he's worth $35 million a year, I think that is utterly insane. Maybe in podcasting,
yeah,
but not as a current NBA player. If Draymond could maybe cut that to I don't know, 15 or 20, I don't know. Draymond in Milwaukee, championship culture. I mean, who knows?
It wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, because I'm trying to be realistic here, because we're not getting Jaylen Brown.
No. Not
getting Dame Lillard, which Evan has been pining for. But I'm thinking some free agents right now. Draymond, let me tell you, I don't think he wants to record in Milwaukee, but if he wants to, he's a Midwest guy.
Yep.
Connecting the dots here.
I feel like Draymond's been one of those guys where it's he's asking for more than he's worth, and that makes sense because he has 4 rings, and I feel like that's what Klay Thompson does too. All they do is just say 4 rings. But I feel like they're missing that kind of player, a small forward, power forward kind of guy outside of a dominant shooter. They need a physical intensity, and Draymond, I know, brings physical intensity. We've obviously seen that through the past decade. But there's
and at his own teammate too.
At his own teammate too, who's now gone. That one threw me off.
That is ridiculous. That is so okay. I'm gonna be honest. That is so funny to me. That Jordan Poole gets punched in the face in practice. Okay, ends up having a bad year because obviously there's tension between Jordan Poole and like the rest of the Warriors.
Then they
And
dish
then
him out.
and they trade him not only to like not even to a good team, they trade him to the Wizards, who nobody cares about. Nobody cares. Nobody gives two craps about the Wizards. Like that's like the worst punishment imaginable. Dude gets punched in the face and then gets sent to Washington.
Yeah, that one threw me off, especially seeing Chris Paul get traded twice within a few days. But yeah, to see like a guy who I don't know, I think he's pretty good. Like not like a next Steph Curry, but he had a little shot in him. But just to dump him like that is kind of crazy. But yeah, he's got the physicality for it, like the intensity, like he knows like how to get people going, stuff like that. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just feel like they're going to need someone like that on the team, especially with new coach, new, I guess, like environment. But I feel like that wouldn't be a bad look at. I'm assuming he's going to resign, but if he would ask for cheaper, I wouldn't be opposed to it, like at all. People just don't want him because, oh, Draymond. That's how people will see it as. I don't want Draymond.
I think he's going back to Golden State.
Yeah.
You don't trade Jordan Poole to the Wizards unless you're bringing back Draymond.
Yep.
They couldn't have those two in the same locker room together. But here's the thing, okay? Sure, the Warriors might be a dynasty right now, but let's think about like a huge what if scenario. What if Draymond Green and Kevin Durant or Draymond Green and Jordan Poole didn't have their falling outs? How many championships would Golden State win?
At least 3 more.
I think they honestly might have tied the Bulls. Okay? Like, if you really think about it, you had Kevin Durant for 3 years, and in the season before he departs for free agency, they get into an argument in which Draymond basically says, dude, we don't need you. Okay, we won 73 games without you. Like, you could leave. You want to leave anyways. Like, if he doesn't say all that, he's probably staying in Golden State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they definitely would have, because the only year they didn't win with him was when he went down and Clay went down. So I see at least 3 more championships with them, but it's the Draymond effect, and I feel like they're going to go with the guy who's been there for so long, and they're not going to break up their trio, which I'm surprised they haven't. The Warriors are good, but I don't see them winning another championship. I might have jinxed myself, but the 2022 season was really good. But I don't know what some of the guys are getting rid of and who they're getting. It'll be interesting, especially now that Chris Paul's coming on the Warriors, which again is the weirdest sentence I think I've ever said in my entire life, of Chris Paul on the Warriors. It'll be interesting just because you'll have him coming off the bench, assuming there's no way they're going to start Chris and Steph Curry, but it'll be interesting. I'm curious as to what they're going to do to kind of not build around Chris Paul, but what are they going to do like rotation wise, especially if they're losing Dante and Jordan Poole.
Well, I think there was talk of like Chris Paul is probably going to come off the bench, play about 15, 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes, be a backup role to Steph Curry, which I could see. I think the only people I have concerns with is his age. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be able to keep up with the Warriors? Is he still quick? And, watching the past few years, the answer is no. He's not as quick as he used to be. He's still really smart. Still a really smart player, but I don't think as players get older, of course, they're going to slow down. But, at this point, I think Chris Paul has earned the right to be like, all right, I got to compete for a championship. Yeah. And I do think he's got a few years left. It's just, I just hope the injury bug doesn't bite him.
Yeah, I'm assuming at this point, I don't know if he asked to be traded there or just trying to win a ring in the last 2-3 years that he has, but I'm kind of surprised the Bucks didn't try to get him. I thoroughly thought that there was a small chance that they go after him. And again, I don't know how I would feel because I think if the Bucks were to win, then he wins with them. I wouldn't be opposed to the Bucks winning, but just seeing him get the ring would have been a little doozy. But it'll be interesting. And then I'm just hoping that the NBA just in general starts to like come alive and make some trades, because again, that's the best time of the year when trades are made. Obviously, the draft is done, so we'll see where that goes. But it'll be interesting on what's going to happen, especially with the Bucks. New coach, new rookies, new coach mentality on wanting to play his younger guys. Like I utilize them. I keep saying idolize them, utilize them in a way. So it'll be interesting to see how they're used. I'm excited. Still got a couple months though, but we're getting there.
Well, wait a minute. Now we got summer league.
That is true. That is true. I'll probably watch more summer league now, just with the rookies and Marjan as well, because I want to see the change in Marjan. I want to say at least 80 to 90% sure he'll be played more this year. There's no way he doesn't, especially that he was working out with Giannis. There's no way this dude doesn't play. Now he's not going to play like 30 minutes, but he'll definitely be like an eighth man, I would assume. I hope.
I hope so. You know, he's got to get some minutes. We're high on, I think Milwaukee's like really high on him, obviously. And, you know, again, he had some good moments. You know, obviously, you know, Mike Budenholzer just doesn't play young players. So, you know, that's why he kind of had to waffle between playing in the G League and playing in for the Bucks, obviously. So we'll see what happens with that. If I had to predict for Andre Jackson Jr. and Chris Livingston, I feel as though they could be in a similar situation that guys like in years past, like guys like Marjan and even Sandro before we got rid of him last year, is they might waffle between the G League and playing for the Bucks. Because you want to see those guys get like game action just to see how they look. But we'll see what happens. But one thing's for certain, the Gnosis is probably going to get re-signed.
Good. Sign him. Keep him forever. I don't care any of the hate that other teams give him of this dude sucks. I don't care. If it keeps Giannis, I'm fine with that. Yeah. Any team in that situation would say the exact same thing. There's no way they wouldn't.
So when Thanasis decides to hang it up, I mean, they're not going to retire his jersey. But are they going to, like, reserve his bench spot? Or, you know,
bring him on the coaching staff.
Put him on the coach. Ooh, that'd be good.
The team manager.
I think that's a step down.
No, it definitely is. I feel like he should be, like, some coach or still part of the franchise, because he's got to, like, almost do, like, a Giannis Haslam kind of thing. Play as long as Giannis does. When Giannis is good to retire, then Thanasis is good to retire.
You know, credit to Udonis Haslam for having the for like not being selfish, because keep in mind, he played for the Heat. He was a regular starting power forward for the Heat for 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the Heat were like, dude, look, we you know, you played for 11 years. We can't really have you be our starting power forward anymore. So why don't we keep you, but you're not going to play in a lot of games.
Or like at all. Yeah, he just like, I just feel like they just got him for like the veteran status, helping them at practice or in games. Again, would maybe play 20 seconds here or there. I think he did play in the finals. They played him near like the way end where it didn't matter, but it's weird. It's cool, but it was kind of interesting just to like, I don't know if I'd want to sit there for that long. Sure, you're getting paid money, but I feel like it'd be boring. But I hope they just keep him until Giannis is a Buck forever, and then I'm good. I will be satisfied.
Well, I think they kept him because, you know, Udonis Haslam, you know, when people talk about Heat culture,
it's him.
That's Udonis Haslam. It's not like, all right, you want to throw Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley in there, fine. But Udonis Haslam is at least like number 3 in terms of like these are like 3 important guys in Miami Heat history. Like when people talk about like the Miami Heat and the players they get, it's like guys like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and, you know, Robinson and Harrow and Lowry. These are like hard workers, guys who fit into the Heat culture. And I think Udonis Haslam was an extension of that. So I think that's why they kept it for so long. And Bucks, they have a culture. It's not really called anything, but I think that Milwaukee is a place where players have like thrived.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that, and then obviously the same for Udonis has him. But again, retired 20 years. I think 20 years. Yeah, yeah, 20 years. Maybe
20,
like yeah,
20 years.
hard playing years. But yeah, I can see Thanasis them. If it makes Giannis happy, it makes me happy. But yeah, I'm assuming the Bucks will start doing re-signing stuff soon with him and some of the other guys, Chris and Brooke, hopefully too. But again, we'll go from there. I don't have too much more, but we just gotta wait and see.
All right. Before we get out of here, I want your official prediction. What are the Milwaukee Bucks going to do in free agency? Got a few options. Resign Middleton or Lopez. Resign Lopez and let Middleton walk. Let Lopez walk and resign Middleton.
They're gonna re-sign both of them. And if they were to pick one of them, Brooke, I feel like would definitely be the one to stay. I feel like it's at this point it's harder to replace Brooke than it would be to replace Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why they would re-sign both of them because the center market's not very good.
No, and to trade Brooke to get someone like really young, it's not going to happen. I mean, it could, but
Brooke Lopez goes to the Rockets. It's like, well, then you're not going to compete for championships.
Yeah, the only center I could see potentially being DeAndre Ayton, but it would take a lot with Brooke to try to get him. I think out of all the centers, he's the most like hesitant on the trade block right now.
Yeah, and I was just reading that Phoenix is likely going to run it back with DeAndre Ayton on the roster.
Yeah, I don't see why they trade him in general unless you're getting like a superstar, but
he's expensive.
If they keep the Phoenix Suns, I don't know what they're doing. They keep trading all their depth and then not getting it back. Like they got Bradley Beal, and now they get rid of two more bench guys, and it's like you have the best starting lineup ever, not ever, but you have like the best starting lineup, but then you have nothing else after that. So good for them.
I've been saying about
the guys.
I've been saying about the Phoenix situation. It's not going to work. Okay. If Isaiah Thomas has an active role as everyone says he does, they won't win anything. They won't. Okay. He has a proven track record of being a terrible front office executive. He's horrible. That like literally, there's a proven track record of Isaiah Thomas not being a very good front office executive, doling out bloated contracts, trading for guys who shouldn't have been trading for, giving up too much. I mean, look what he did with the Knicks. He screwed them over for like damn near 10 years or however long he was employed there. He's going to do the same exact thing for the Suns. I don't know what Matt Ishbia was thinking, giving Isaiah Thomas as active a role in their front office as he did. But I get it. He's a Michigan guy. Okay. Isaiah Thomas, played for the Pistons for a long time. But it's not going to work in Phoenix. Fine. You have basically three good players, but no starting point guard. You got rid of Chris Paul. Okay. Like, who's your point guard? Okay. Who's running the offense?
Cameron Payne.
Oh, that would scare me half to death.
I feel like that's their point guard now. Is it not?
If Cameron Payne is their starting point guard going into the 2023 season, like if I'm a Phoenix Suns fan, I am queasy. I'm nervous. I'm like all of the above, like sick to my stomach.
Yeah, their 3-point guards are Cameron Payne, Saban Lee, and then Jordan Goodwin. I've never even heard of Jordan Goodwin. I'm going to be completely honest with you. He doesn't even have a picture. No offense to Jordan Goodwin because he's doing a lot better than I am. But Cameron Payne is their number one point guard right now. So it'd be him, Beal, KD, Ayton, and
say Bradley Beal.
Yeah. Who's their power forward? Do they not have like another? What's his name? Mike
Booker, Durant, Ayton.
Okogie, or would Kevin Durant then play? Maybe no. It'll probably be Cameron Payne, Beal. I miss Booker. I'm so stupid.
No, you're good. You're good. I was like,
so it'll be Payne, Beal, Booker, KD, Ayton. Or would they put one of those two at the point guard and put like Torrey Craig at the small forward? I don't know. I
don't either. That would scare me. Okay, that lineup going into next year, I get it on paper. Those
exactly
like the star players are good, but it's like, who else you got?
Mm-hmm.
Who else you got? You already got rid of Landry Shamet. Like Jock Landale. Like I can't name. There's not too many Phoenix Suns I can name right now. TJ Warren, I know, was on the team. I think
that ex-football player.
Ish Wainwright.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, I can name him. But other than that, I'm like,
Frank the Tank. Is he still there?
No, he was on the Rockets. He got traded to he got rerouted, I think. He might have got
yes. I remember that.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting in Phoenix, but
Yep, the Rockets.
So all right, so your official prediction is they're probably gonna re-sign both of them.
Yeah, they're gonna re-sign both. And if they were to pick the one, I feel like it would be Brooke over Chris.
Yeah, I think they're gonna re-sign both too. Just because of I think Milwaukee they can't really improve on the roster. And someone mentioned today that if they basically let those two guys walk, there's nothing that Milwaukee can do to be like, oh, we can kind of spend our way out of this. So
yeah,
I also think they're going to re-sign both Brooke Lopez and Chris Middleton.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it'd have to be a sign and trade, which I still don't see happening.
Probably not. So, Evan, you got anything else?
No, but we will be back when the Bucks start making moves.
Yes, we will. So, thank you guys for tuning in to this special edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. We'll see you guys, kind of at the start of free agency.
Yeah. All right.